Hello, and welcome to Let's Meet the Virologists, a podcast about the people behind today's science headlines. People just like you, working to understand viruses and how they affect you. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we are talking with postdoctoral researchers involved in coronavirus and COVID-19 related research, so that you can learn who they are and what they do. I am Larissa Thackeray, and I am hosting this podcast from America's Heartland in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, September 1st, 2020, we have with us Ahmed Hassan, a postdoc in the Diamond Lab at Washington University School of Medicine. Ahmed obtained a veterinary degree and a master's degree in veterinary medical sciences from Beni Suef University in Egypt, and a PhD in molecular virology from Purdue University, where he studied the use of adenoviruses as a vector for influenza virus vaccines. He has a recent first author paper online in Cell highlighting the potential importance of intranasal administration for SARS-CoV-2 vaccines, called a single-dose intranasal chimp adenovirus vaccine protects upper and lower respiratory tracts against SARS-CoV-2. On a personal note, I have known Ahmed since he joined the Diamond Lab in 2017 and have enjoyed many conversations about science. Hi Ahmed, happy to have you with us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you become interested in virology research?
Initially, I was interested in becoming like a medical doctor and getting a medical doctor degree. But the way the system works out in Egypt is different than the US. So it's basically based on your GPA that qualifies you for which college you can join. And instead, I joined, it's something related to still medicine. And instead, I joined the vet school to pursue my DVM degree in the vet school.
Thinking back, what inspired you to get a veterinary degree? Do you have family members in medicine or science?
Not really. I'm the first person to go into medical, study medical field, like whether it's vet school or the medical school. I'm the first person, and it was fascinating how they were helping me and encouraging me all the time and pushing me forward.
What did you do after vet school?
What I did after graduating from the vet school, I did practice as a veterinarian for some time. And I had a large animal clinic. I was treating cattle and horses and also dealing with some poultry farms and managing the system in poultry farms. But at that time, that it was the time when avian influenza came from Southeast Asia and started to infect humans. And I thought to myself, that caused very huge economic loss, especially like in countries like Egypt, where poultry is a main source for meat. So I thought to myself at that time, why don't you study viruses to understand what it's all about, and how can you like prevent this from happening? So that was the notion, or the ignition that made me excited about studying viruses. And at that time, I decided to go back to the graduate school which is part of the vet school, and I joined the graduate program in the vet school for a master's degree. But at that time, I started with studying a different viruses than what really ignited my passion to study viruses. So my passion was studying influenza, flu. But then my master's degree, I studied viruses, and that includes bovine viral diarrhea virus and another virus called border disease virus. And there's a really fascinating site about these viruses, which made me interested more into understanding immunology and viral immunology. The fascinating site is that the virus can infect pregnant moms, pregnant cows, And from these pregnant cows, it can infect the fetuses before they develop their immune system. And that makes what's known as persistently infected animals, because the immune system of these embryos will never define the virus as a foreign antigen. So it gets recognized as a self-antigen, and that's why these animals are born as persistently infected.
When did you first come to the United States?
During my master's, actually, I got the chance to get some training at University of Minnesota, where I joined the veterinary diagnostic laboratory there, and I got the chance to get the exposure to many aspects of virology and other diseases other than virology, because I was working in the diagnostic lab where all the farmers submit their samples and their animals to the diagnostic laboratory. So I got so much exposure about viruses that are infecting animals, and my excitement became much more in studying these viruses and understanding the zoonotic aspect of how these viruses are being transmitted to humans and causing these big troubles in humans.
And how did you get to graduate school?
After my first trip to the US, through that training, I decided to go to Purdue University, where the initial ignition came back again to study flu and design vaccines and start to tackle the problem of avian influenza and working on that.
What was the focus of your PhD research?
Yeah, so during my PhD, the focus of my research was at molecular virology of adenoviruses, understanding the packaging of adenoviruses, and also with illustration on using adenoviruses as vectors for vaccines, and especially influenza vaccines.
How did you get your postdoc in the Diamond Lab?
So studying this aspect made me interested in more into understanding the adaptive immune responses, and how I got into Diamond Lab. Actually, this is there is a cool story behind it, because I was in a Keystone meeting presenting my PhD work, and then there was a talk that Mike gave about developing vaccine, the mRNA vaccine for Zika virus. And actually, I thought to myself, well, this is really cool, and I want to study this more and understand more about adaptive immune responses and B cell responses and antibody repertoire. So I talked to Mike during that meeting to initiate that, and all things happened, and now here I am at Mike Diamond Lab.
Can you describe your research in the Diamond Lab?
So I joined Mike Diamond Lab as a postdoc 3 years ago, with interest in understanding the adaptive immune responses, especially to vaccines, and looking into antibody repertoire and B cell responses. And we published a paper. We kicked off with studying some gorilla adenovirus-based vaccine, where we studied the immunogenicity and protective efficacy of this vaccine in different Zika models. After that, we're designing studies to look at the impact of pre-existing immunity on responses to vaccines and many other things related to Zika viruses and other flaviviruses.
How did you start working on COVID-19 research?
So given my expertise in the vaccine, and especially the adenovirus vaccine field, so that was started early on in January to design and start making the vaccine for COVID-19. So that was the main reason why I got involved, because giving my experience with vaccinology and adenovirus in general.
Can you describe in a little bit more detail the COVID-19 related research you've been doing in the Diamond Lab?
Well, I started a design with the vaccine design in collaboration with the Cural Lab at Washington University. After making the vaccine and immunizing mice, we started to test these vaccines in mice and see their immunogenicity, evaluate their immunogenicity and protective efficacy in the model that we have developed. And by that time, there was the transgenic model, the transgenic mouse model that's permanently expressing human ACE2, the receptor for coronavirus, that was available at that time. And so we tested the vaccine in that model as well. And the vaccine was really protective.
Can you comment on the main take-home message of that work, that intranasal vaccination may be superior?
Yes, yeah, that's the most, I would say, the most exciting part of the story, and I would consider this because actually when I started the vaccine work for COVID-19 early on, so that the virus was killing people, and I really felt at that time, given that I have done work with vaccines all this throughout my career. So I was thinking to myself, and even talked to some of the folks in the lab, that I really want to do something about it. I feel it's my responsibility to help with this by making this vaccine. And then, so we started on the study, giving the vaccine with the regular route we usually use with the adenovirus vaccines, which is intramuscular immunization. And during that time, like Mike, even before seeing the results of these intramuscular immunization, Mike suggested doing intranasal immunizations, and I thought to myself, why? I was not really excited about it, and I was not sure if this is going to make any difference. But when we did a challenge after intramuscular immunization, there was some level of virus replication that was still there. It was reduced, greatly reduced, but it was still the virus replicating. So the vaccine was not blocking the virus completely. And I thought to myself, well, that's it. That's what we could do, and that's what we have done. And let's get this paper out. And I was like pressing with Mike very much to like get the paper. I already started writing and putting figures together. And at that time, Mike was, let's wait and see what the IN immunization looks like. And I was thinking to myself, well, it's not going to be any different. I don't think it will be any different. But surprisingly, and this was a real surprise to me and all the people in the lab, that the intranasal immunization worked really better than the intramuscular immunization.
So why do you think it's working so well?
The reason behind it might be some induction of the mucosal immune responses. Especially, we found very high levels of IgA in the lungs, which are mucosal, protecting the mucosal surfaces in the respiratory tract. And the other thing is the lung-resident CD8 T cells. So there was some level of activated lung-resident T cells that's producing interferon gamma, and definitely that played a big role in clearing the virus and preventing the infection, blocking the virus replication completely in the lungs and in the upper respiratory tract as well.
So turning back to more personal things, what was the most difficult thing you've had to overcome in your career so far, and how did you overcome it?
I think that time was the graduate school. Be honest, the graduate school was a tough time for me because I was raised and I was born and raised in Egypt, and that was like a big time to be away from home. And I didn't have a family at that time, so it was a very hard time to, to be without support. In addition to the frustrations that you get with research and graduate school as normal, so it was like multiplied by 10, I would say, because of all the things related to it. But at that time, I came to know my wife, my future wife at that time, and she was really supportive to me during that time. If you are talking about research, difficult time, so she was supportive and stood behind me during that time, and was because at that time actually I was thinking of maybe quitting at some point because of the frustrations. But that was really helpful from her, and that helped me push forward during the graduate school time. So that was the most difficult time to me.
So you are still early in your career, but if you had a chance to ask your older self, say you at 70 when you had retired, one question, what would it be?
The question I will ask myself whether I really did what I wanted. That's the question which I will be remaining all the time. Is this really something I did want to do, or I was just doing it because I have to do it?
To follow up on that, how do you make sure you are doing the right thing?
Yeah, that's that the choices are really tough to decide at sometimes, and so making sure to you are making the right choices. I would say I will look in the future, so that it's vice versa. It's the opposite of what you have said. I look at the future and then think about, well, is this really something I would love to see myself in 5 years, for example? Do I want to see myself as a PI, having my own group and pursuing my passion into doing research in 5 years? And what area of research am I interested in doing or pursuing? So that will be a key to answer that difficult question at this time, and definitely seeks the experts' opinions, and talk to people and ask them because definitely they have gone through similar stuff, so that seeking expertise, experience, that will be also helpful to decide and make the right decision.
Continuing on the personal level, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected you as an individual? What has changed for you?
Well, everything has changed to be. It has affected everyone's life. So, at the personal level, we are very limited in like seeing our families and friends, and my kids are staying at home, no school, which is really painful and hard time for all of us. And like the moment we decide to go out and they see the street, they become so excited and so happy. And so where I'm talking to my wife all the time. What era are we living in? It's something like when we see the street now, it became something really good. So so it's a hard time, I believe, to everyone, and it has changed my life personally. At the personal level, it has changed a lot.
You're obviously working a lot during this time. What do you do in your free time during the COVID-19 pandemic? Have you picked up any new hobbies?
I had a free time before the COVID, actually. But since the COVID, the workload had become much more, and I'm still trying to get some time to myself. And actually, I started to think of doing biking recently. I didn't start yet, but this is a thought, maybe during the summertime, to enjoy the weather and explore St. Louis while I'm biking.
As a virologist, how do you make decisions about how to keep yourself, your family, and your community safe?
Yeah, so this is during that hard time, you definitely like you would let people who are not virologists and not understanding what's happening here. So like my family or friends, I would talk to them and give them advices and trying to make them understand how it's really the virus is spread, for example, how is it really happening and how to protect yourself and how to be cautious about handling stuff and putting masks. And you will see some resistance at some point. People are not taking it really seriously, but I mean, the community needs to be educated about that, and that's our role to share with them our thoughts and politely advising them and helping them through this.
How is your family doing in Egypt? So, what's it like there?
It's different than here. My parents are living in Egypt. I have also two sisters are living in Egypt, and it has been a really tough time for them as well, especially given the healthcare system is not as efficient as it is in the US, and the access to the healthcare system is also different.
What did they think about your situation here?
They were well. They knew that I was working with COVID, and they were very supportive and trying every single talk I have or call I have with them. They ask me, "Did you discover something new? Did you come up with a drug? Did you come up with a vaccine? What's the situation? We are praying for you." You know, so that was all the time happening and still happening till today. So, and they got excited when I told them about the vaccine story and that we are working on this and we'll come up with a solution for it.
So, we're winding down. Do you have any last messages for our listeners? Any thoughts about the future of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, at this time, we still need to learn. We have learned a lot about COVID-19 in this short period of time, but there is still a lot to learn more. We don't know the durability of vaccines. So there are so many vaccines out there, and some of them are in phase 3. We don't know how durable how durable the immune response is against the virus itself, especially in the light of some cases are coming, having reinfection happening again. So is this going to be a common, something that's happening regularly, seasonally, or even in waves? So this is still need to be figured out, and whether there will be some different strains that can make infections similar to influenza, for example. But the important thing that I want to emphasize that there was a paper came out a few years ago, and it was about speculation of a new coronavirus causing a pandemic. It's a message to decision makers and people in science that we are doing science for the good of people, and please take that seriously. So, and also it's an emphasis on the importance of the One Health program, like screening different animals, screening different bats, and all these, because we do all that to speculate what's going to happen in the coming years. We don't know exactly 100%, or we have no idea how this is going to exactly happening, but we give some hints and something is going to happen. Like if we had some broadly reactive antibodies against coronavirus, that could help us a lot with this.
Thank you, Ahmed, for talking with us today. Ahmed's previous studies allowed him and his collaborators to quickly design a chimp adenovirus-based vaccine, which shows promise in animal models in protecting against SARS-CoV-2 infection, even in the upper respiratory tract. which may potentially prevent transmission of the virus. This has been Let's Meet the Virologist, a podcast about people who study viruses. This is your host, Larissa Thackeray, and thanks for listening. You can find us on Google and Apple Podcasts or at lmtv.podbean.com. If you are a virologist interested in sharing who you are and what you do, please contact us at letusmeetthevirologists@gmail.com.